She woke up every morning before the sun, made breakfast for a man who no longer said thank you, and raised children who only saw her cry in the dark. Nadine was married, but every day she disappeared a little more. Until one afternoon, she collapsed. And everything changed. What happens when love becomes labor, and a woman becomes a stranger in her own home? The alarm rang at exactly 4 a.m. Nadine's hand reached out from under the blanket, silencing it before it could disturb her husband. She lay there for a few seconds, eyes wide open, heart beating slowly. The room was dark, cold, still. Next to her, Tyrone was fast asleep, his breathing steady and peaceful. He hadn't turned to face her in days. Nadine gently sat up and placed her feet on the tiled floor. Her body ached, her back stiff from another night of tossing and turning. But there was no time to rest. She had children to prepare for school, a house to clean, lunchboxes to pack, and a lesson plan to finish before heading off to Crownfield Academy, where she worked as a primary school teacher. By 5:10 a.m., Nadine had already boiled water for morning baths, pressed 2 uniforms, packed food flasks with rice and vegetables, tidied up the kitchen, bathed Junior and Sophia, and was brushing her daughter's hair. She had not brushed her own teeth. By the time it was 6:45 a.m., Tyrone finally stirred. He reached for his phone and laughed softly at the messages in his football group chat. He didn't ask how the morning was going. He didn't look up when Nadine rushed by with Junior's backpack. He just chuckled and went back to his scrolling. Nadine paused in the hallway, staring at him. The man who once whispered sweet words while kissing her neck now didn't even notice her swollen eyes or tired limbs. Just good morning. No, you look tired. No, thank you. No, do you need help? She turned away without a word, holding back the heavy pressure building in her chest. When she got to work that day, she stood in front of her lively classroom, smiling through it all, but her smile was paper-thin. Inside, she felt like a cup of water poured too many times. Her students made noise, her lesson went on, but her body, her beautiful, giving, tired body, was crying for rest. Still, she kept moving. Still, no one noticed. Not even the man who once promised to protect her heart. Once upon a time, Tyrone had been everything Nadine ever prayed for, kind, present, thoughtful. He cooked with her, helped her fold laundry, played games with the kids, and even painted Sophia's nursery himself before she was born. They used to laugh in the kitchen. They used to pray together. But then everything changed the day Tyrone got promoted to senior project coordinator at his tech firm. With the promotion came a new car, and the brotherhood. That was what his old university friends called themselves. They were a group of 5 men who met every Friday at lounges, bars, and barbecue spots around Lagos. They drank, laughed, and talked about their marriage, their kids and so on. One evening, as they sat around a grill, the topic turned to women. "My daughter cries every morning," Tochukwu said, biting into chicken. "And my wife expects me to help bathe her. Am I a housemaid?" The others laughed. Tyrone chuckled. "I help sometimes. Nadine and I share responsibilities. We've always worked as a team. And we are doing just great." There was a pause. Then Yugaku gave a sharp laugh. "Guy, you too soft. You are spoiling that woman." "Exactly," Tochukwu added. "Women like that will never respect you. Be the man of the house. Provide and rest, that's your duty as a man." Another friend leaned in. "When you help too much, they see you finish. Then one day, she'll talk to you like your junior. Better take the lead now or you regret it later." Tyrone smiled, but something inside him shifted. It started as a joke. But the words stayed. The next day, he didn't help with breakfast. The day after, he refused to check Junior's homework. A week later, he stopped asking Nadine how she was doing. Instead, he sat on the couch, headphones in, TV loud. His only contribution became money transfers and occasional one-word replies. Nadine noticed it all. She noticed how the home slowly became a stage she stood on alone, while her partner, once her co-actor, now sat in the audience with arms folded. But she said nothing. Because what do you say when your heart is breaking, and the person holding the hammer doesn't even know? Weeks passed. Nadine carried the home like a quiet superhero. But even superheroes break. One afternoon at school, as she stood in front of her students, everything began to blur. The chalk in her hand dropped. Her vision turned grey. She felt her knees buckle. And then, darkness. When she opened her eyes, she was lying on a narrow clinic bed. A kind nurse was patting her forehead with a damp towel. "You fainted, madam," the nurse said softly. "You're dehydrated. Your body is overworked." Nadine blinked, slowly sitting up. I just need to get back to class." "No," the nurse said gently but firmly. "What you need is help." Nadine laughed faintly, not from joy, but from something close to sadness. "Help?" she whispered. "From where?" That evening, Tyrone sat with his Brotherhood friends at a lounge on the island. The TV in the background was showing a football match, but his mind wasn't there. "My wife collapsed at work," he said, casually, as he took a sip of malt. "They said it was stress and dehydration." Tochukwu raised his brow and chuckled. "Collapse? Because of what? Washing clothes, taking care of just 2 kids and cooking rice." Hugo leaned back and laughed. "You see what I've been telling you? You spoiled her, my guy. Always helping her, always jumping around doing chores like you're the second wife." "Exactly," Tochukwu nodded. "You've made her too soft. Just 2 kids and she's collapsing. Interesting. Our mothers had 7 children, went to farms and never fainted." "But Nadine also works," Tyrone said, defending her softly. Tochukwu scoffed. "So? She should. These modern women are lazy. Always looking for a way out. If you fall for this one, next time she'll fake something worse just to control you." Hugo leaned in. "Let me give you real advice. Toughen up. Don't give in to her drama. The more you help her, the more she'll start seeing you as a houseboy. And women don't respect houseboys." The laughter around the table was loud, but Tyrone didn't laugh. He stared at the bottom of his drink. Something in him twisted, but he nodded anyway. Maybe they were right. Maybe he had made her weak. Maybe he needed to step back even more. That night, he returned home and said nothing to Nadine. She had just returned from the clinic, pale and quiet, carrying 2 children's bags and a handbag. Still, he offered no words of comfort. Just silence. Later that night, she sat on the edge of the bed and looked at him. "Ty, I think we need a nanny," she said softly. "Even if it's just for part-time. I'm really, really tired." He looked at her and scoffed. "You want to bring in a stranger into our home? My mum had 5 children. No nanny. You have 2. What's your excuse?" Nadine's voice cracked. "I'm not your mother. I am me. I work. I teach. I care for our children. I need help." He shrugged. "Then rest when you can. Nobody asked you to overwork yourself." He returned to his phone. That night, Nadine slept in the guest room. No argument. No tears. Just a silence so loud it could break windows. 3 days later, while washing clothes in the backyard, she bent down and didn't stand back up. Sophia screamed. Junior shouted. Uncle Bayo next door heard the panic, rushed over the fence, and found Nadine collapsed near the clothesline. He didn't waste time. He carried her straight to the car and drove to the hospital. At the hospital, the doctor shook his head. "She's suffering from severe stress, chronic fatigue, and high blood pressure. Her body is shutting down." They admitted her for 3 days. Tyrone paid the bills. He bought her favorite food. When the doctor showed him Nadine's report, he felt guilt but couldn't show it. Back home, he stayed with the kids alone. He cooked. He cleaned. He bathed them. He fought to get Junior to do homework and struggled to keep Sophia from crying all night. By the third night, dirty plates towered in the kitchen. Laundry was untouched. Toys were everywhere. Tyrone sat on the floor beside the kitchen door, holding a bottle of water with both hands. His eyes were red. His body was weak. His heart was breaking. And in that moment, he finally saw the truth. He wasn't helping her before. She was carrying the entire family, alone. And all he had been doing was watching. It was just day one of Nadine's hospital stay, and the silence of her absence already felt like thunder. That night, he sat in the living room with Junior and Sophia. Their eyes looked tired, unsure. Sophia clutched her little bunny, while Junior kept asking, "Daddy, when is Mummy coming back?" "Soon," Tyrone said, forcing a smile. "She's just resting." But he didn't say why. He didn't tell them that she almost passed out doing laundry. He didn't say that the woman who kissed them goodnight every evening had been carrying more than just chores. She had been carrying him too. The second day was worse. He tried making rice and stew. The rice came out soggy. The stew burned. Sophia refused to eat it. Junior cried because his uniform wasn't ironed. Tyrone sat by the kitchen sink and stared at the pile of dirty dishes, wondering how Nadine did it. On the third night, while helping Junior with math homework, he couldn't understand the questions. Sophia started crying again. The food was cold. The beds were unmade. And then it happened. He sat on the kitchen floor and wept. Not loudly. Not wildly. Just silent, painful, shame-filled tears. Because in that moment, the truth became undeniable. He wasn't spoiling his wife by helping her. He had been spoiled by her all along. The next morning, Tyrone got up early. He brushed the kids' teeth, packed their bags, ironed their uniforms, and sent them off with the driver. Then he drove straight to the hospital. When he walked into Nadine's ward, she was sitting up in bed, quietly staring out the window. Her skin looked pale. Her face looked thinner. Beside her on the table was a Bible, her phone, and the bottle of malt he had brought the day before, still untouched. He stood there for a moment, unsure of how to begin. "Nadine," he said softly. She turned slowly, her expression unreadable. "I brought your favorite biscuits," he added, placing the pack beside her. "And flowers too." She nodded politely. "Thank you." "I'm sorry," he whispered. "For everything." A pause. "I thought I was being a man," he continued, sitting beside her. "I thought providing was enough. But now I see. I've been absent." Nadine didn't speak immediately. Her voice was tired, not just from illness, but from years of carrying a home alone. "I didn't want perfect," she said gently. "I just wanted present." They sat in silence for a few minutes. No fighting. No raised voices. Just two people finally realizing the gap between them. Tyrone reached out and took her hand. "I miss you. The kids miss you. And I want to do better, not just say better." Later that evening, he drove to see his mother. She welcomed him with a warm hug. Her hair was grayer than he remembered. Her eyes, quieter. "Mummy," he began. "Can I ask you something personal?" "Of course, my son." "Were you truly happy with Dad?" She paused. A long pause. Then she sat down and looked at the wall. "I survived, I stayed, Tyrone," she said. "But I was not happy. Your father gave money. But he never gave himself. I raised all of you while he watched TV. I cried in silence. I broke down and still kept moving. I didn't need a hero. I needed a husband, I needed a partner." Tyrone's heart sank. "Mummy, why didn't you ever say anything?" She smiled sadly. "Because back then, it was normal. But that doesn't mean it was right." She touched his hand. "Don't become your father. Be better. For Nadine. For your children. For yourself." That evening, he drove to the beach. Alone. He sat on a wooden bench and watched the waves roll in. He whispered to himself, "If I don't become a better husband, I'll become a memory in my children's lives and a regret in hers. I will not lose my home trying to look strong. Real strength is showing up. Every day." He drove home with a new mission. Nadine returned home after 3 days in the hospital. The house was cleaner than usual. The kids ran to hug her like soldiers seeing their general return from battle. "Mummy! Mummy!" they cried. She smiled faintly, touched by their love, but her body still moved slowly. Tyrone stood by the door, watching everything. He looked nervous, like a student who hadn't studied for an exam. "I made lunch," he said. "Jollof rice. The salt might be too much, but I tried." She nodded. "Thank you." They sat down to eat, all 4 of them. It was the first time in weeks they had shared a meal together. After lunch, Tyrone brought out a notebook. "I've written out a home schedule," he said. "Days when I'll do school runs. Days when I'll handle homework. I've even researched part-time nanny options. But only if you still want it." Nadine stared at him. "Why the sudden change?" she asked. "Because I finally listened," he said. "Not to my friends, but to the silence in this house. And to the voice in my heart." That evening, they sat on the balcony, sipping tea. The children were asleep. The breeze was calm. "I visited my mother," Tyrone said softly. "Oh." "She told me how she survived marriage, but not happily. I've been thinking about it all day. I don't want to be a man my children grow up to resent. I don't want to be the husband you only endure." Nadine looked at him. "Then let's start again. But this time, walk beside me. Not behind. Not ahead. Just beside." He reached out and held her hand. That night, for the first time in a long time, they slept side by side. No guest room. No unspoken words. Just peace. And partnership. It had been 2 weeks since Nadine returned home from the hospital. 2 quiet, healing, surprising weeks. Tyrone had not only shown up, he had stayed consistent. Every morning, he helped the kids dress up while Nadine cooked in the kitchen. Every evening, he asked Nadine how her day was, and actually listened. They began having small conversations again. At first, it was about food. Then school. Then old jokes. One night, they both laughed at a memory from their first date, the one where he spilled Zobo on his shirt. The laughter felt unfamiliar, but good. One Saturday morning, Nadine came out of the room and paused. Tyrone was in the kitchen, wearing an apron, flipping pancakes while humming softly to himself. The kids sat at the table, giggling. She leaned on the doorframe, watching. Something warm stirred in her chest. He noticed her and smiled. "You're just in time for breakfast, my queen." She raised an eyebrow, amused. "Queen? Are we writing a love poem now?" He turned off the cooker. "Maybe I am." Later that day, they sat outside, sipping orange juice. "I want us to do this right," he said. "Marriage. Parenting. Life. Together." Nadine nodded. "I've always wanted that." They began setting new routines. Saturday laundry became a team task. Meal planning became fun again. Even the kids seemed lighter. One evening, as the sun melted behind the rooftops, Tyrone took Nadine's hand. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for carrying us all this time." Nadine didn't reply with words. She just leaned her head on his shoulder. Crownfield Academy had its annual Family Appreciation Day. The school courtyard was packed with parents, teachers, and students. Canopies danced with colors. Tables were decorated with snacks and juice. The microphone crackled as each child stepped up to perform. Nadine adjusted Sophia's socks while Tyrone balanced the camera. Next, we have Sophia Johnson, from grade 2, with her original poem titled, "My House Has Love Again." Nadine blinked. "Sophia," she whispered. That's Junior's best friend. Sophia walked up, holding her paper tightly. She cleared her throat. The crowd grew quiet. There was a time my house was quiet. Like a clock with no sound. Mummy cooked and cried, while Daddy was not around. But now my house has laughter. It has hugs and warm toast. I have 2 parents who love again. That's what I love the most. There was a hush. Then claps. Tears. Nadine sat frozen, her mouth slightly open. Tyrone stared straight ahead, blinking quickly. Sophia smiled and walked off. Later, Junior ran to them. Mummy. Daddy. I helped Sophia write that poem. It's about you. That moment cracked something inside them both. They knelt and hugged their son. Not just out of pride, but because his little heart had been watching them, even when they thought he didn't notice. That night, they tucked the children into bed and sat quietly on the couch. I've wasted so much time, Tyrone said, trying to impress the world outside, while breaking the world inside. You came back, Nadine said softly, and that's what matters. He handed her a folded note. She opened it. Thanks for carrying us all. Tonight, I respond with action. I don't want to be the man you survive. I want to be the man you thrive with. Nadine looked up and smiled. And there, under the quiet hum of the ceiling fan, they danced. Slowly, gently, without music, just the rhythm of hearts that had once drifted apart, now finding their way back to the same beat. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And it was enough. Because love that has been tested, and chooses to stay, is the kind that lasts. One Friday afternoon, as he scrolled through his phone, he saw a message pop up on the Brotherhood group chat. Tonight's hangout, same place, same time. Let's unwind, guys. Tyrone stared at the screen. He hadn't seen them in weeks. No one had noticed. He didn't feel guilty, just aware. Aware of how much energy he had once given to the group, laughing over drinks while his home slowly cracked beneath him. He thought about the conversations, the careless comments, the prideful advice, the jokes disguised as truths. The way they dismissed his wife without even knowing her. He didn't exit the group. He didn't announce anything. But that evening, instead of dressing up for a hangout, he stayed home and helped Junior with a book report. Later, he watched Sophia fall asleep on Nadine's lap. It was in that moment that he knew. He was exactly where he was supposed to be. From then on, he stopped attending every hangout. He stopped laughing at jokes that didn't sit right with him. And even when he did show up once in a while, he listened more than he spoke, and he never discussed his wife again. Not her habits. Not her flaws. Not their private life. That door was now closed. Because his home was no longer up for public opinion. And his marriage was no longer a performance for men who didn't carry its weight. He didn't hate them. He didn't argue with them. He had just evolved. And some growth doesn't need to be loud. It just needs to be consistent. He had finally learned to protect the peace he nearly lost, and that meant guarding the voices he allowed into his heart. This story teaches us that marriage is not just about love, it's about responsibility, presence, and wisdom. It reminds us to be careful how and where we talk about our marriages. Not every table deserves to hear the story of your home. Some advice may come from broken places, wrapped in laughter, but it can plant dangerous seeds. Be mindful of who you take advice from. Not everyone who calls you bro or sis understands the weight of your commitment. People outside your home should never influence what happens inside it. A successful marriage is not built on outdated roles or pride, it is built on partnership, patience, empathy, and presence. Providing money is important. But providing yourself, your time, your help, your listening ear, is what truly builds a lasting home. This story also reminds us that silence is not always peace. A woman may carry the world on her shoulders with a quiet smile, until her body finally gives up. Don't wait for that moment. Don't ignore a partner who is silently suffering. Don't become the man or woman your children learn to resent. Don't follow advice that makes you feel powerful while your home crumbles. Instead, choose your partner, again and again. Carry the weight together. And never let pride win over love. Because marriage is not a performance. It is a partnership. And your real strength is in showing up, not showing off. Thank you for watching this heart-touching story on African Spicy Tales. If this story made you feel something, if it reminded you of your own journey, your parents, or someone you love, tell us in the comments. Should Tyrone have realized sooner? Have you ever felt invisible like Nadine? What would you have done differently? Do you think it's only a woman's duty to care for the home? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep, emotional stories from Africa that don't just entertain, they heal, teach, and stay with you. Until next time, choose love. Show up. And never let outside voices break your inside peace.